That's as good as it gets, huh? Okay. Work on all this other stuff in due time. In due time, my pretty. All right. I just want to start this off by just saying this is WNDC and DC. WNDC and DC stands for We in the Crib and You Ain't. I mean, basically speaking, uh, sometimes I wonder, like Stevie, uh, how at any given point in time I could possibly end up relaying whatever I be feeling like saying on any given day, and but yet still here I am. Yeah, and I'm working with new technology all the time and trying to really just stay up under the radar, as far as everything else is concerned in this world. And yet here I am in my 60s, and as much as I'd like to just recall, remember, format the manner in which most people need to see. Um, what concerns me the most is how at some point in time or how possible it may be for me to not screw this up too. Because the only way I get to know is if I oh yeah, I pick up my phone, I go over to Facebook, I go over to my page on Facebook, and I scroll down to my last post and I hit the YouTube thing. Now, if I unmute and I hit the YouTube thing, now that means that now I've just created a loop in what we call this matrix of sorts, and yet, um, yeah, technology is pothead shit. I get almost 3 or 4 different loops now in this little jokey joke. And what I'm listening to from Facebook back into YouTube while I'm using YouTube Studio to do this. I'm listening to uh, Souls Dance Live on Eaton Radio. Um, it was done on June 7th by my man on Eaton Radio. I forget his name right now. I'm not going to really put everything out. It's fair use. All right. But I'm going to end this loop on this phone right now because it's freaking me out. Freaking me out. Freaking me out. God damn it, my account is restricted again on Facebook. Come on, man. I can't make this shit up. See why your group's post will be moved to a lower feed because you, sir, are scoundrel. You're a mean one, Mr. Imp. You're a nasty one, Mr. Piv. I don't get it, man. Uh, I really didn't sign up to be who I am or how I am or the way I am, regardless of how anyone would possibly have the audacity to look out on the other side of me and go, "Yo, man, you checking out this dude, man? What's up with this?" And I know that kind of sounds like an insecurity of such, but what concerns me the most is that somehow, some way, I get a chance to actually put this out. So for that reason, uh, due to the miracle of what do they call it? Due to the miracle of uh my Xfinity, I'm gonna see how well my Wi-Fi works with all of these little things because yeah, I'm a gadget freak right now, and right now I'm hoping that somehow uh, uh so I'm masochistically go live. You don't get enough. Never too much, never too much. Hey, it's 2023 right now. It's June. And in my 60 years on this dirt that I can recall at least 40, 50 of them in bits and pieces, I find it quite comical how I can recall so much of a concept of sorts, that we would um do we would entitle what good old life here is getting me because man, it's like that right now. Uh I grew up right there in the heart of the '60s with family that was really um was really into this whole uplifting the race thing. This kind of concept of hope in a land of um uh this land of hope and dope. And I say these things in the manner into which I do because uh if any of you find yourself triggered by this whole presentation of sorts, um, then consider that I'm also trying to work on putting this um, on Instagram too. And unlike the other times that I would normally, try to keep it short and sweet and simple, which never occurs to me because I'm not the short and sweet and simple kind of person. I'm gonna attempt to um, go at this. Yeah. So here I go putting my life and whatnot on Front Street for that reason. Uh, I'm gonna try to orchestrate uh, what some call a studio into just uh, all kind of shit going on with this. Okay, hey, okay. So now I'm working on two different things at the same time. I'm wondering how the bandwidth and sound and all that's going to come out because, man, I figure if there's ever a time that I really need to just actually take a moment and really just try to leave something out there in zero and ones lands that might uh, entertain, inform, or enlighten, anyone for that reason. I would hope that, I'm not trying to really make a career at this. I'm just really honestly trying to reach out and touch a lot of people right now outside of this bubble, into which up until 9/11, after 9/11, uh, I found myself kind of stuck in this kind of rut where I lived out there along with you guys too, and for some reason, the the mystery and the culture into which was not prepared to assist me as it's been set up to assist people of color at this state of enlightenment into this concept of being more in the know in the game as the world turns and the ages do some other stuff. I mean, more on the dirt, the people kept little scrolls as to when you find a place and you put it there. This is probably going to be good enough for us to make sure that we're there in the trilogy. For some of you out there that's feeling me, then you'll know that that trilogy kind of goes with Rome, the Vatican, and then there's England, the Queen's England, and London are and then, oh, next thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire, and here we got great states of the United States, plus or minus, of America, the New World. Not just the New World, but as we came and we made this, they followed, and where we once found ourselves in the ultimate of freedom up north, the great white north, just like in the old world from the Moors and Africa and this, that, and the other. Somehow, some way, God damn it, I got a lot of people over there. I hope y'all can hear me. If you can't hear me, somebody need to say something because I wasn't even studying y'all over here. Y'all on my little cell phone shit. But follow me if you will, because maybe just maybe for somebody out there, whatever come off the side of my neck tonight, June 11th, 1 dog, uh, 2023, and or is it 24? Yeah, it's 23. And I remember how we grew up as Americans, attached to not just seasons, excuse me, our reasons or lifetimes. We were conditioned into a certain format that we remembered so well. I mean, like Norman Rockwell, and yet how so many have failed to forget for so many others that we have now on this dirt. For the first time in the history of humankind, there's a recording of the mere fact that as the world turns, for the first time, there's an enormous amount of adult people from different generations, distinct generations, from baby boomers to Gen X to Gen Y to Gen Z to the Millennium One, Two, and Three. You got the crack baby. You got all these other things that are now descendants of past all of that. Yet here we are, and what some would want to call, don't you forget, Juneteenth, because that's when we should have been getting our reparations. And way back in the age of the Mayans, when Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, as a reason that now me and you are stuck in this reality for another lifestyle or two, we sit here in this state of united, divided, can't be beside it of this concept we now have called America. Yes, we can, and yes, we did. But did we? Uh, yeah. Uh, um, I'm trying to recall some of the reasons why I wanted to get all of these little analogies of sorts out of my head because I'm sure that at least one or two of y'all out there uh, would possibly have some form or fashion of, yeah, amen. And so for you guys over on Instagram, uh, if you find a way of finding my Cash App, it's my name, Hafiz Harris, and all the H's are capitalized with the dollar sign on Cash App. I say that because nothing says thank you, and we have to start getting used to the same tradition that we were conditioned from the time that we started this whole concept called America and our currency and our life and our unity and our freedom. And yet we're really behind schedule in the natural order that all these other things were due to start happening as the world turns. Very something odd in reality. And yet we plan too much and we got all the technology out there. And never you fear any kind of like doomsday like James Orwell pulled off way back in the day when all we had was our very first source of reaching out, knowing is anyone out there? Anybody really know what time it is? It's 4:30 something here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Some who are residents here of a higher upper metaphysical state actually even go as far as joking and in a manner of stating, here in this satanic amusement park. Well, at least that's what they initially started from the first brick to the first dark skinned person. Once again, created the same history that we all try to fight against each other as to who built this all the way back to Noah. And yet, uh, here we are in 2023. Ah, and excuse me while I'm trying to keep my level of technologies up and whatnot, but you know, but the thing here is this. Nostradamus and Nicodemus and all these other people, all of these people we've heard out there way back before baths, um, that we basically conditioned our theory of relativity on, um, went as far as they could, and then they went crazy because they couldn't predict anything farther than the state and the age of this. Everybody, from the Mayans to the Egyptians to the Greeks to the Romans to the cavemen, everybody couldn't see. But when the time comes, when revolution comes, It will not just be something that has to happen because somebody's mad on one side or the other. When revolution comes, everybody. It's like when you're living in a house, if you were ghetto enough to feel this, and back in the in what's they called the key lock days, you would have it where you'd have little communities of kids that used to watch the other kids, used to watch the other kids while mom and them was out working or whatnot, and we couldn't have no man in the house, so you had to have somebody to make sure that there was no need for the authorities to come up and find all of these other different generations of neighborhood kids. Or, oh, girl, can your baby watch mine too? And the other one, and this, that, another. We got to this, that, another. And they would take turns if they could, and basically being able to stash a lot of people who may be listening to this right now may only be able to attach that to their parents or their grandparents. This wonderful world of dating is so messed up for me at this age. Just the mere fact that I started early in life as an adult doing adult things, knowing adult things, respecting why these adult things were meant to be as they were at that level of society. But now in 2023, all bets are off of a lot of that. There is no old guard. Even for the people who might have thought as a baby boomer they were, the other generation past the other generation were the people who really invented everything from swinging to BDSM to poly to all these other things that they would allow themselves to use, all the way back to when the pilgrims who escaped Europe, escaped the old world by wanting to claim, by wanting to claim, uh, you know, when they want to claim, um, what do they want to claim? They want to all claim supremacy in their writings. We look back and we see the Greeks, see the Romans, see the Egyptians, we see the Moors, we see all of this. And yeah, even if we're not allowed to teach everybody still today, we have to say that it's like the Power of Babylon in sorts. Only this time, it's not building a tower to meet the creator. It's being prepared to be that creator. As others that come from theirs with their creator, all try to find within now not just your community, not just your county, not just your state, not just your country, not just your continent, not even just your freaking planet. Star Trek, boldly going where no man has gone before. And yet, if we were if we were capable of gaining the permission to broadcast uh, 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 to broadcast a series of podcasts of sorts. Call it satire if you want. You know, and the year 2000 was the best we had for 50, 60 years. Today, people are sitting back there going, man, AI is about to take us all over. And what really gets me is wherever I'm at right now is usually some way off stuff that, back in the old days before we had all the social media, people would find ways of getting into smaller, like-minded groups, even if they got lucky that weekend. And they would sit back and philosophize on how it's gonna be because they were in the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and they were great because soon and very soon, they're gonna be able to get away from all of that shit that even Alex Haley had to doggone turn back around and admit. so far after the fact that there are generations of people who still can't understand how much of a uh, culture shock, a mind fuck that it was to find out that he made that shit up to make sure that we get to a point where, oh man, Roots back in the day created moments for people. There were white people. Oh, I apologize, man. Poor Chicken George, bruh. Um, Kunta Kinte. Oh, he cut his foot off. Don't run. Don't run no more. I'm gonna get you, John Amos. God, the star-studded saga of something that was created so eloquently diverse in this thing, this concept called roots, was such a series of 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 of, of, of recreation that when you buy the box series of it, you now get the disclaimer. Oh, and by the way, this is not really as true of a story as this is not really Alex Haley's great 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 grandfather. Right at the point where half his doggone kids had already got through the doggone educational system because hey, and now this is something that we're now having to deal with because now it's not just us. Now we've got aliens coming down and saying, "Hey," and you're freaking out, don't freak out, don't freak. Hey man, we come back in a little while when you don't freak out as much. And yet we're not ready for all that. We don't like to be around each other. Man, I don't like those other people. Why? Because they're from another side of the planet that you've never been in enough to understand how the water runs down a toilet different than it runs down yours. And if that shit don't change a whole lot in your life, then maybe, just maybe, we need to take this little spurt and reset our new set of reality in our minds so that we can kind of curb the need to be more medicated when this earth turns in a manner to where it's not going to stop doing this to people, humans, everybody, plants, everything on this earth, at least until 2033, if they did the calculations on how the rotation works enough to be able to justify the last three books of religion that are supposed to be like a watch. Anything else past that comes from the Mayans, and that's where we got everything down to the fishing report. And yet they stopped right around the 19 to 2000. Everybody thought it was going to be year 2000. Oh, it's going to be the big reset. Didn't happen. Then they were like, okay, 2012. And yet, I think right now is a real good moment for everybody to have things that make you go, all right. So, for the amount of people who can actually recall in trivia, a song that a little um pansexual black boy, brilliant, made called and 2000 party over, oops, out of time. But hey, we gonna party like it's 1999. There's absolutely nobody on this planet who rather can recall or reproduce the level of party we were in 1999. And yet, baby boomers will sit back and tell you, almost as a warning, anyone who says there was adult and they were living back in the 50s and 60s cannot recall it. And in most cases, while it seems so valid, it's also created because technically speaking, back in that era, it was the era of deny, just don't tell nobody what we did back here. Yeah. Baby, I know, you've got a wonderful world, and you and that black kid and this, that, and the other are making some nice brown babies and this, that, and the other, and they're gonna have to carry the lineage of having to realize, God darn it, because we're now in this era where all the things that we were conditioned to believe back in the era of encyclopedias, back to dictionaries or whatever we had to read, error, was incorrect. Incorrect. I mean, we have to realize that half of the problem that we are struggling with between us and everything else is the mere fact that the last generations who we are as older people are the last generations who can actually metaphysically ascertain where, in fact, we finally shun ourselves from. We are no longer genetic humans in the manner into which we've been to way back to since the cavemen. Only here in this prophesized new world, old world, the new world. Only this order that everybody thought that they were going to jump into the game because they were illuminated or masons or whatever, and everybody like the movie the Sixth Element or the Fifth Element or something, where by the time that it's time for them to have the celebration, the little happy boys that were the priests that basically just happened to be on duty that day, end up having to, okay, okay, and now we need to, oh, and my, and what should we wear? And this and the other. And yet here we are in June. Now we know that the summer solstice and the winter solstice are probably by far the two most uh, intense shifts that happens on this planet that we are, because we all surf in life. They call it gravity. Most of the other planets on this in this universe don't have gravity. Soon as you leave this dirt, the farther you get, the less gravity. And yet, most of us can't stand to sit and stand next to each other. And this world is slowly starting to squeeze back into it. It's not doing that because we're running out of space. It's doing it because we're all gravitating, because everything else out there has been placed into our minds and our hearts that you'll need people like me. We need to be together. We need to come together right now. Why you can't stand your neighbors over me and it's high ass rent. And yet here we are trying to think of, oh man, what about that smoke joke? Here we got all of a sudden so much smoke blowing over the highest populated areas of this country from a foreign environment that is not even expressing the my bad for the people who have had to leave their environment because what is that? It's smoke. Smoke from what? It's no joke, some people say. And yet, the way that our communications is, we're not necessarily allowed to talk more about what's going on in the rest of the world, even if it's right next door to us. So, how's your sinuses? Your area here, the place that you claim your fame to enlightenment, because your brain is an organ too, and yet the mind, the mind doesn't exist. You cannot remove, surgically remove, or even find the mind and the heart. And yet you've got a brain and a heart. Can't find the heart. in the mind because these things are masteries. It's like you going out and buying yourself a nice race car because it's cute. When some people go out there to buy a nice car because they race in it and they bring it back in stock condition. And yet now, as Americans, we are now starting to find it very uncomfortable to realize that while we are in possession of a societal culture that's still allowing others to blend in when we've come from a human cultural reality that existed from conquer. I'm the king, you're the queen, and this is our kingdom, and this, that, the other. Oh, down with them, and this, that, the other. These things are hate crimes now. And yet, trying to express at 60 to someone at 26, to someone at 16, to someone at 6 that might sit back there and accidentally get this because mom and them forgot to turn it off. And it's the only entertainment they got because they've got this wonderful plan from one of our carriers of more than 5G now. And nobody feels like we're all sitting in a microwave. And yet, the need for us to have gone from analog to digital was so much more than just control. It was a saturation of sorts. Now, here's your shout. We now have a whole lot of shit going on. People are just up, and all of a sudden, one day they're perfectly sane, and the next moment they come off and do some crazy shit. And in the midst of them doing some crazy shit, somehow in their instinct, they goes, "Well, if I'm gonna do some crazy shit, I might as well go out big." And yet, there is no try. There's only. I like to joke about it in a way of going, it's like your second day in prison. The first day is kind of getting to know you, but that second day, wee, if you sit back and you're sentenced for life, we're now living life that's never been lived due to the mere fact that we've never had this much access to a reality that's never been allowed to be. And at least 90% of the cultures around the planet, due to the mere fact that, ooh, Janet was a nice or nasty, nasty girl. And we're still trying to run past this last hurdle because we had that secret. We had that secret. It's made for a man, but it's good for a woman. And yet, the folklore and even our own religions that's gone from, I'd say, that's gone from, say, folklore to polarity. When God made the earth, he said, "Yeah, what am I do?" And they put all the things in two by twos and just work in order. So everything was in its ecosystem of sorts and all that. And then he made man. And then he made woman. Actually, that's bullshit. They made them both at the same time. Boom. Got them. Boom. What am I do with these? They're fine. What if they don't get along? Freaky dicky. And that's where Lilith and Adam becomes a bottom, a cock, and a madam. And that changes all odds of people being able to excuse the way they use their love and association with each other because this is not Leave It to Beaver. And it don't matter what ward you stay in, the mere fact that you pray in the same places in your mind, but not the same places in your community more so today than any other time in the history of Americans and everyone else in the world, and how they pray, where they go, what they do. That ass, man. Um, I'm sitting here and I'm realizing, you know, that in the process of what you might think to be, okay, let's finally make it fair for all the genders. As soon as you get close to what they call feminism, then all of a sudden everybody else want to be something else. You can have on the end of the day, but do you really want to be? Uh, and that's what's really deep because, well, in the process of all of this, you know, we really have to realize that, uh, this ain't like, Caesar and Caligula, but when you've lived in a culture that's always revolved around man, he man, at a time when we're now being so revolved into pansexual of our polarities. It don't stop who you are, how you are, even if you chop it off or this, that, and the other. We genetically have certain things, but as Homo sapiens, as humans, big problem we got is that we've always been kind of over under humbled and aware. The only people that really actually got in and care would be those hippies or those freaks or the swamis and all of that. They would sit back and they would meditate so to the point that their mind would be so free that they could levitate. And yet, the ultimate is, but them Mayans, we they were so good that Christopher Columbus would keep writing about, man, I found another city of them. When I got there, everything was there. Food was still out there, but they was all gone. Like roaches. Came in, half of them that decided not to go, all got coughed on. Next thing you know, you got another episode of getting to know each other's genetic whatnot. We still ain't ready. We're starting to now to start get used to, okay, maybe there are UFOs and aliens and stuff like that from other places. Yeah, that's fine. You're going, no, it ain't because, at some point in time, we're all going to have to get accustomed to whatever comes off and goes out and everything else of everywhere else too, and be able to be ready to be able to allow a certain other climate that is not indicative to your human existence in a manner where it could be as simple as little Johnny allowing, being allowed to go see, you know, little Eddie, um, Spot. We are now in existence that was actually uh, was actually kind of comedically created. The first generation of Star Trek, James T. Kirk. That was your dog. Loved himself some coochie. Didn't care if it was green with three titties. That was some good stuff, dog. Uh, and everybody followed him. And then there was Spock. Hold up now. Rewind. Now we already know the Hulu that you knew was that little hot little, very smart, fine sister. But she was communications. Now look at the people who was there and what job they had. And then you had Sulu. Oh my. We are still trying to get comfortable, even as nerds. We're still trying to get comfortable with finding out that a lot of the oh my's were really oh my. Not that that wasn't a bad thing, but there were little Asian kids that grew up, and that was the only male image and figure. they had outside of Bruce Lee. And yet here we are now in this wonderful world that we call 2023 and beyond. And we're still trying to play the old games of, can it, I hate you're here. Why are they coming over here? Man, it's all going to be this, that, and the other. And while people would say, it's just, we'll have to deal with it. Because, yeah, it's natural. It's so natural and so unnatural that more people, especially here in America, here's the problem we got about Americans. There's some shit going on around the whole planet and the world. It's beautiful. People are speaking, exchanging money, can't stand each other, allowing their daughters to be with their daughters and their sons to be their daughters. And allowing them to be the movers and the shakers of their genetics. Not because you have to stay here and do this and stop, you know, looking like that and acting like none of that. While some people have been beaten morally within their culture because they had to do that because they weren't ready for it. There's still people that ain't ready for a smartphone. And sometimes you makes you want to wander, makes you want to giggle because sometimes it's makes you want to, sit back and go, man, I ain't trying to brag, but man, how blessed we must be. Wonder how Kuta Kinte. I'm doing a little setup for some people. They're already at a state now where this whole electronic stuff, these non-drivers, are set up now on these grids. And they're all made first for the handicap. And the reason why it's so important for the handicap or handicap accessibility is just because you happen to be 8, 9, 10 feet tall, slightly green, scared the hell out of the Spanish. Here we are. At least they ain't got to drive when they get here. If they can call the right people, but we're still trying to figure out how the hell, Scotty, can you help us get the fuck out of here? I can, Captain. But first, we're going to need some dilithium crystals. Sure, you will. And some Vulcan scotch. Now, hold on for your joke here if you're a Trekkie, because, most Trekkies never get to the point of realizing that when a Scottish guy talks about the best fucking scotch in the universe is Vulcan, and yet nobody can see any form of the identity of non-white like James T. Kirk, more logical like Spock. And yet the new generation was dope because the first time that you see Spock really, his descendants or whatnot, at least you start seeing it with black kind of Spock is. Now, everybody talks about Zion and reggae because you're smoking weed and you never would think that we'd be in a state where now Zion goes for Zionists like it's Republican or something. And there are people out that hold these little phrases or intentions that we stay in this slow, um, ancient, outdated uh, state of, hold on to our little thing because, this happened to us around this era. And you're like, bitch, there are people on this planet that have been going through shit like that a lot more. And the only reason why you got lucky is because some people knew that we was going to be like we are right now today and thought that it would be a great thing for them to set everybody up in thinking that the same people sit back and go, man, population control. Oh man, the Illuminati state, they don't like, all I really know is they don't care about us. Nobody cares about nobody because nobody can see themselves on the SS Enterprise, and you're just all you got. You're boldly going where no man has gone before, and you are the representative of not just Mama and them or Bronx or anything else of that nature. I mean, but by species. And they ain't quite got to the other like Star Wars era yet. They ain't ready to Luke Skywalker. You're my only hope. When shit went back to something else that people weren't just worried about. Dope. They was worried about the mere fact that, pirates take your shit. So you want to stay in your hut. Be safe. Don't only go where no one else is going because what you're gonna do then. Freaky deaky. We're already there. We're there, and a lot of people don't care if in order for them to be in a place where they don't have to, where they've got the ability to travel, to enjoy life, to live enslaved at a level that's more than just high value. It's need to know. It's not above everything. The people who enjoy the mere fact that the richer you get, the harder it is to explain to anyone why it always seems as if they look down upon you because they see more of you who will never try to get in and get out or get away from this bullshit we call a good life, And yet, sitting around in your yard hanging out, and next thing you know, boom, another goddamn spaceship just falls down, and all of a sudden, another goddamn 8, 10, 12 gray, big eyed kind of dudes that every time you freak out, they need to slow you. Hey, calm down. So they put you in paralysis because you can't physically or mentally stop you. You can sit back there and try to lie about something, but that's like taking a lie detector with people who are more connected by mind and spirit. And you're still not ready to be capable of understanding what mind and spirit is because y'all just spiritual. Y'all ain't got no religion no more. Nah, yeah. I used to be Presbyterian, but my uncle used to molest me. Everybody did that bullshit. Even Jesus said, the only reason why I got this far is because ain't nobody fuck with me. Then all of a sudden we got Easter, and they still can't figure out. It's time for us to wake up in a mindset of trying to follow a mindset that doesn't exist anymore while your mind and your body is going through culture shock because your state is now a natural condition that's happened. We've had the hardest last 20 years having to struggle through each and every one of the people on this planet with fear having to go into the mental health thing and ask them what's wrong with me because they're going to say I don't know, you got some form of bipolar, you're crazy, you're this, that, and the other, and all of a sudden people have a stigma and psychosis over just the audacity of, oh my god, what does it mean that there's more of an addiction driven lust to check out of reality due to the mere fact whatever hell is going on with me. Sometimes I could deal with it better when I'm out of my head. And yet you got people who can't communicate with you from their head, falling down to this doggone planet. And your neighborhood's coming soon. You're not ready for Spock. You're not ready. And we're not ready because we're still stuck on this other stuff. And oh my God, what happens if Trump gets arrested? Lady in Georgia said, because I'm a gun owner and my friends are gun owners too. And before we let this happen to him, we ain't gonna act like the blacks did with Stokely Carmichael or something. I'm just saying. we're going to go down there and storm the Capitol again. And I assure you, this time they can't stop all of us. Insurrection. And yet there are people all over this planet that are doing that for better reasons, like water, like fresh air, Times Square. And yet here we are, not quite sure what the hell does freedom mean. And in the state of where we're at, man, I used to remember how everybody knows that one of the most important little holiday things is Mother's Day. And yet more people get stumped on exactly what month that is. And yet everybody knows what month Father's Day is in. And yet seems like the past 20, 30, 40 years, they've kind of found a way of stuffing more stuff into this month. And so now the whole month is Pride Month. Not that it's Pride Month for everybody, but it takes a whole month to allow every proud pride community, because there's so many of you. You got black pride, you got white pride, you got the men, you got the lesbians, you got the trans, you got this and that, and they each have little things, and you can go hang out. And hey, if we get a whole month, we can have a real party, girl, all June, the same doggone time that most people would go out. And conditionally, we would do vacations or Disney World or something in the school. Yay! All these other things are falling into summer solstice. The one thing that everybody didn't say, hey, you better be ready for the next solstice. You know, shit happened. And we're losing time and we're gaining time and there's other things happening, but people are understanding that. But this time, there's some real stuff happening every solstice. From the time that we hit the pandemic solstice, all jokes were off. And at the same time, this is also the time that the Mayans said, okay, y'all wait till that summer solstice comes because it's like everything naturally will just all of a sudden just happen on its own. And it's called the end of all things. A picture, if you will, a whole culture of people who have been lucky or blessed enough to be highly favored, that they get a chance to join this whole secret little group of this, that, and the other because they were prepared to be prepared when the revolution comes with the age of it don't be just a dawning, it's the age of, and we're ready. And we got our rulers, we got our compasses, we got our books and our logic, we got our faith, we know how to turn into pure light, we can transcendental flight, we can go to the moon soon. And yet here we are playing around with, oh, it's getting bad down here. What are we gonna do with our kids? Our kids are suffering from you know what, I really don't wanna if the way that this world is going is the way that it is, and I look at my parents and how they be like, they barely on the dirt in itself, and it doesn't hurt to realize that from 2012 initially, this earth start doing something that it only does every couple of thousand years. But this one's so much more different because nobody could figure out what this whole great wide web. They couldn't figure out what this YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and they couldn't understand a smartphone and they couldn't realize what a butt call could do when the casing into which was making the old bricks now glass. And soon we can have them within, and yet it still ain't ready. You're not ready to understand how now you just can't think, you can get away with some BS because technology will snitch on you. And yet we're still dealing with a whole lot of shit yet to come. Like the sun all of a sudden coming out and being so stars at night are big and bright, so damn strong that all of a sudden people are having brownouts, blackouts in their technology that they need so much of now because everything that they got around, they couldn't tell you how to live off of a grid or with no electricity, no water, no where now you got to deal with. nature being livestock. What happens if you have to go out and kill your own food? Not just because, you like it for sport, but because your descendants are going, Mama and Daddy, I'm hungry. How are you going to grow shit when you don't have a green thumb and can't figure out how you can put a little honey pot somewhere so somebody else don't have to see it? We're not ready for a lot of other things that are going on while we're dealing with the mere fact that nobody is comfortable with the amount of extra freedom that people are being invited to without the courtesy of understanding. If I got to change how I am to make you more uncomfortable when I'm the kind of person that makes you clutch your pearls, I'm the kind of person that sometimes, not intentionally, might just happen to look through your soul, might just happen to transmit a certain mirrored image in the Hakoah state that might have you looking at your own fate through the glare of my glasses. While I'm sitting there trying to figure out who the hell you are and why can't you move out the damn way so I can get off the train and do some other stuff. And that's where we're at in this world right now. Living in places like this makes you sit back and go, if there ever was a department of spoon benders, they'd have an office right down the street from your house because this is where you stay. So it ain't for you to sit back and go, no, hey, never met a vocal before. Kind of like you guys. Enemy mine. When a white guy had to go back to Lou Gossett's Alien Planet, had to learn how to sing this song that was so we scared of don't be messing with them doggone people over there. I don't know what to really say or do. I just know that I need to get a lot of this off of me because I'm watching a lot of signs of, sucks to be you out away from me, many others under the bubble. And there are bubbles all over this planet. And in case you forgot, Janet, who's that making that nasty joke? Nasty boys. No, and here's the real thing. Now we're in a state where we no longer talk about bipolar by way of you being crazy. We talk about bipolar by way of being organically stuck on a planet that is going through a wobble to such a degree that even the weatherman sometimes kind of slides in. Oh yeah, the Earth is wobbling and nobody can do this. And a true story is that there are people now that are really dazed and amazed at the mere fact that they cannot predict the ratio of revolutions and direction and twists and turns that for the past several whatever, and that's the reason why they shut up about all that, including the NASA stuff and everything, because the medical field has had to now sit back and try to figure out how they can make genetically something to be able to help people to be healthier. And at the same time, we really are finding ourselves in this kind of evolution of allowance of of what people call freedom, the freedom to not necessarily need to have to know how deep this shit is in the universe. They just want to stay in Tupelo, be fine, but be in one below, and yet they're proud to be an American. And America is not even, it's an investment by all the other people who wish that they could be something that everywhere they came from would never let them be. And we are now in a revolution of sucks to be you even more if you're not capable of being more attuned to the mere fact that we're all basically sitting on a planet that it don't know where it goes, round and round it goes, and yet nobody even knows what this shit is. Half of these people are still trying to figure out why is it that you only know about a few continents, and you got a master's or your highly degree. Yeah, you can travel and this, that, and the other, but have you really been to Antarctica or this, that, and the other, or Alaska or these other things? Have you really seen where the earth is this way? Have you taken a trip out to just look at the big blue marble and come back home? You know, what's it look like on the moon? If the moon radiates so much light from the sun behind you that you can be just as lit up at night, you gonna tell me that it's just that doggone bright on the moon? Like, when you make your glasses in the mirror and you see them there, you know, is it as bright in the flash that comes through the light or from behind the mirror? You know, those things don't really have to mean much to anybody, but it really beats a blank when there's so many people out there right now that are losing it just for the mere fact that they can't just la 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 anymore because this planet is way too populated for you to just be losing your mind and not necessarily paying attention to where you're going when we're all going the same direction. And so for your protection, they're now trying to take away the whole need for a lot of people to just have that leniency just because what you gonna do out there? Like, why do you care? We care because you don't know what the hell else we got out in these places because they have to be here. Because they're gonna be here another couple of 200,000 years if they're lucky. And yet we all know now that our biggest fear is when do we let our electronics and whatnot go and let it do us? Oh, that's AI. I don't want AI. Well, understand that we are, as in the way the movies try to give you little hints. And yet there are more people that are saying, I just want to be cocoon, man. Just let me people are sitting back and they're like, yeah, man, I want to live a long life. But there are more older people right now who've lived such a good life for so long from the time that they were young that now that they're old, they're really at, you know what though? Wow, why am I still here? They got to change the time and age that we normally would retire just due to the mere fact that we're uh, healthier than some of our grandchildren. You know, now we're starting to realize that as we get this way, we may be the last generation of people who are surprised to get to 60, 70, 80, 100 years old. Last generation. And yet, life don't start until after 40, they say. I think that's shifted too, but at a certain point in time when you have no more spurts to grow as a human, you then have the option. You can be elderly or you can be wise. And you cannot force yourself into being wise. You can only accept being elderly. This blood and water, this flesh of my flesh is just temporary in comparison to what you do with the time that you have this rental and being able to utilize this thing called a brain. And yet, while some people are going insane, there's still the same kind of understanding that even the people who died now and they look at their organ, the brain, they still notice that they ain't used but that much of it. And this mug's not, come on, man, that's not a bad thing. They say that sometimes, they might have uh, oh yeah, my Instagram is gone. That motherfucker flipped. It flipped out. And I'm okay with that. So I'm gonna try to go back with it. Anyway, you know, uh, It is what it is, man. Wow, this is crazy. Look, my shit is frozen because I'm in here and I might have chosen, a direction in this thing. And this is what happens on the inside of the bubble. When even though you got the bandwidth, there's some places and sometimes and whatnot that they go, hey, slow down, Tiger. Maybe those people don't need to. So I advise all of you to follow where you can, you know, but understand that, yeah. And I'm just trying to get these things out because I know there's a lot of things that I haven't said. This right now have been boiling in my head. But uh in the name of the Father, name of the Son, the name of the Holy don't really sound the most anymore because this month, on the same weekend and era of Juneteenth and my birthday, also is Father's Day. And for a lot of us who was raised in a state where there weren't that many of them around, you knew that if there was anything you didn't do, it was to make Father's Day better than Mother's Day because Mama had you, and it just made you. But now we got Juneteenth, and yet what really gets me is that the only reason why they let Juneteenth be more than a Texas holiday was just because they didn't want to say that the last two states that had to stop using slaves legally was Delaware and Kentucky, northern states, where they couldn't use the law. They couldn't use the law of taking your slaves and making them free because you're a part of the Confederacy. That's what freed us, not the Emancipation Proclamation. That was just a piece of paper. But the army could actually walk in there and take all your you say what there, cowboy? You's a Confederate. All these slaves yours? Really? Juneteenth. What? The sheriff's a what? We are in this world and this realization now. I've been reading these books. In a labor union. I'm reading these books, and the two that really stand out the most were blacks and African Americans and our Negroes in organized labor. And just like how Africans were, in Africa, same thing that this our geneticisms and whatnot have put us in by way of how things have come and go. But this ain't back then no more, you know. And while some people are still trying to buy that, oh no, we don't want unions in our house, this, that, and the other. We the people, in order to form the most perfect union, should be enough that we shouldn't have had to go into this other stuff. Oh yeah, you're with the AFL-CIO. MNLP. You're the LGBTQIA and yet we're still dealing with genetics. We're still dealing with class structure. Oh, you didn't go to Cambridge. You've never traveled there. Oh, you got nappy hair. Oh, you can't understand that I'm standing here? Who are you? My dad really blew my mind when he said there'll come a time where you have to find where if you are dealing with people who believe that they need to show me your papers, you don't need them. And yet, as beautiful as that sounds, it really doesn't work that way at the airplane or somewhere. Show me your papers. What's on your Oh, we don't have that here. You gotta go over here. And yet, we still ain't got to Captain James T. Kirk Foley going where no man has gone before. Bones, what you got? Yeah, well, you can live, you can die, you can die. I can do the best that I can, but damn it, I'm just a doctor. takes a village, community, and yet you can't really see how they would get all the way down to now. If you had to be out there for at least 2, 3 generations, what kind of genetics we should put out there that would most suit the reproduction in order for them to raise another generation of astronauts. Mama was an astronaut, daddy was an astronaut, grandma was an astronaut. I ain't seen Earth in ever. I heard about it. I hear we're about to be in that universe again. First time, 150,000 years. Damn it, other than apes. First, it was just the astronaut. Next thing you know, there's more. And God damn it, what are we gonna do, Cornelius? I don't know. I know our daughter really likes the dark skinned one. Never let a monkey sleep with an ape. That should have been the next generation of this planet with apes. That's where we should have went. You got no choice. You're all here. They keep falling into your yard every freaking day. They ain't coming from the south, they coming from the north. Hell is going on in Canada? How can there be that much fire to make that much smoke, to do that much damage? That people are out there really choking off of a whole lot of that. And still, I mean, it's all about, damn, said, man, they're going to take the sun and this, that, and the other, and all this other shit. Man, all those conspiracies are probably way past that era and time for you to want to put it on the back burner, man. We ain't going to talk about all that, man. We still got problems with the Democrats, Republicans. Fucking motherfuckers. I hate the police. This, that, and yet we've got these children that are so out of the what the fuck we gonna do? Where the hell we gonna go? All the doggone good jobs grandma and them got still. Ain't nobody passing on nothing. We've got more generations on this earth that are now going into a good life as being the first recipient of the ability to be able to pass on generational wealth on earth. And there's so much I want to get off my head, but it's getting late and I need to get my ass to bed. And with that being said, I just want to tell y'all that this is WNDC, which stands for We in the Crib and You Ain't. And I'm a Hafiz Alpha Master Pimp Sir Easy Active Dominant in the BDSM lifestyle since 1978. I'm a whole lot of things to a whole lot of people, but what I really am is grateful for everything. And I hope that while you understand that anything that's being said here is to inform, educate, entertain, or enlighten. It's also customary that the gratitude that one can have for liking, sharing, subscribing is also donating because nothing says thank you like cash. I do it all the time. You good?